Hey everybody, welcome to the show. And today I get to hang out with my buddy Jeff Miller. Off camera, we were about to just basically have the whole interview off camera. We were catching up. It always happens. So he's the creative director who works at Masterworks, and we've just had some amazing conversations in the past. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me so much. I'm just so excited to catch up and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, dude.
I love wrestling with the unique challenge, honestly, of the modern day journey of what we as believers in Jesus and followers of Jesus have been tasked with us is like, we got to bring the kingdom and we have to live that out and show people what that is.
Yeah.
And model Jesus's life in doing that. And yet there's all of these unique constraints and challenges and just the world doing its thing around us that is constantly creating a tension between how do we live. I don't want to be too cliche about it, but like, how do we exist in this space, in our, secular anthropology, if you want to call it that, and at the same time play by the rules and break the rules all at the same time.
Preach it, man.
That's what it is.
Come on, bro. That's Jeff, y'all.
I happen to have to do that from a marketing perspective and from a creative perspective in my career, which is a really unique intersection in culture, in brands, in enterprise, in capitalism even, and in parachurch and generosity and all of those spaces, which is unique. That's not the only place, but there are some very unique challenges that we're in the midst of with artificial intelligence and with politics and with social media and digital technologies. It's moving so fast that nobody can keep up. Like not even the secular world, if you want to say that there's a world.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of trying to figure it out all at the same time and do the least amount of damage possible.
Very much so. Oh, dude. So giving everybody a little bit of context, right?
Yeah.
Like the sandbox that we're playing in. So tell me a little bit about you and who you help, and then Masterworks and who Masterworks helps.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
So I've worked at Masterworks in a variety of capacities over the last 8 years. Masterworks, you can think about them as what started as an agency that helped faith-based nonprofits essentially grow in the world, fundraising, marketing, that kind of thing, with just a very specific specialty there. Masterworks has grown over the last 8 years. Technically now we are a capital partner of Glue Incorporated, who just went public. So so we are now technically owned and by an artificial intelligence company, a faith-aligned artificial intelligence company that has
wild. That's a mouthful. What you just said.
That's a whole conversation in and of its own. Cut its teeth serving the church. Now Masterworks has kind of come in as a parachurch expert, right? But we're wholly owned subsidiary, so we independently operate from Glue, but Masterworks has expanded to fundraising, growth, branding, organizational transformation. Masterworks owns the largest independent media network that can reach the largest Christian audience in North America. So there's a pretty large swath. So, and I've kind of worn a lot of different hats in that space.
Yeah. So who have you traditionally helped? Like, who's coming to you, and what's the transformation that you bring?
Yeah. So I've cut my teeth on branding and brand strategy. That's kind of where I started in the for-profit space out of Silicon Valley. So I've worked a lot with helping organizations rebrand or figure out new markets, new avenues to grow into from a strategic standpoint, culture work, and creative, obviously like creative exploration. Spent years doing like facilitating and managing full fundraising programs to that kind of like large swath. Where we specialize is that faith-based, what we call maybe like faith-based organizations or faith-centered. So it's not that it's just nonprofits necessarily. Worked with churches, worked with nonprofits, and worked for for-profit companies that just happen to have owners who are believers, or a board member who wants to work with us just because they love their brains working. It's a kind of an interesting segue actually to what we were talking about before you started recording, which is like the weird dichotomy between making everything Christian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily what Masterworks does. Like, I'm a big believer that, you know, maybe you need to not be a Christian organization to be relevant in bringing about God's kingdom and helping people flourish.
Yeah.
And that's maybe the better descriptor of Masterworks, which is we want to work with organizations who want to help humanity flourish. Right.
Come on.
In a way that
say it again. Say it again, bro. Yeah.
Right. Like, we want to work with an organization who helps humanity flourish. That's what we're all about. And I'll be honest, there's some Christian organizations who I would probably say, nah, dude, you're not helping the world flourish right now.
Yeah.
Which is also complicated. Like, it's a complicated space that we live in right now. Tacking on Christian, like that's our temptation, especially in my world, in the marketing space, is maybe over the last 30, 40 years, you need to make a Christian version of something.
Yes.
You can't just make something and happen to be a Christian who's telling a great story or doing a great thing or helping humanity in this way, building culture, making culture as Christians, as followers of Jesus. It has to be Christian all of a sudden, right? Like, we were talking about the Inklings, you know, C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and all those guys. They didn't live in that world, right? Like, Lewis, when he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, or Tolkien when he wrote the Lord of the Rings, he wasn't trying to create a Christian epic. Right? He was trying to create a human epic.
Yes.
With an amazing morality that is centered on the biggest story. Yes. Right? The story of the creation. And he was wrestling through those themes, and he wanted to remind people of those themes. And he was obviously influenced by his faith and his belief, and that's where his world building began. But it wasn't a Christian book. It was just a great story.
Come on, bro.
I think the Christianization of something can often be a trap, right? Because it makes it so that we're trying to create alternative cultures that you can escape into, rather than culture makers that can exist and change culture today. Like, it's not about making alternates. It's about changing and informing reality. Dude. And that's what's one of the things that I am maybe I've been thinking about the most. Is, you know, and this is a John Comer way of thinking about it, but I think in his latest book, he said it a couple different times, but I know in Practicing the Way, he talked about how everything is spiritual formation. Everything is. Everything you consume is formation. So therefore, if you have that perspective and you have that lens, if you are a nonprofit, or if you are just a podcaster or a content creator or a church, or just a dude who's trying to start his own shoe company, I don't know. Everything you put out in the world, whether it's your shoes, whether it is your brand, whether it's your marketing or your messaging, it's forming people's spirits. It's either going to form them towards Christ as center and kingdom and king, or it's going to push them into an identity that says, I am king. I am like the center of this world. I define right and wrong. Right? You can kind of see, like, one of the best examples of that in terms of spiritual formation is, look at, like, I'm on a Mac, I am an Apple user.
Yeah.
But if you look at like what is Apple trying to do? Like, does Apple want to form your spirit towards Jesus, or does it want to form your spirit towards yourself and towards itself? Well, a good case study on that is to think about the really famous or infamous blue bubble, green bubble dynamic, right? They're trying to sell a product, and they're trying to make this product make you feel good. So they built essentially what you could consider as a digital caste system in their technology, where if you are an iPhone user, you get a blue bubble from other iPhone users. And if you are a Android user, it comes across as a green bubble.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've built a judgment system in there where you are seeing other humans as less than your cohort. And it is brilliant from a company who is trying to make you the center of the universe. And therefore, you want to associate yourself with other people who are in that tribalism. But it is done through a caste system, meaning it is built on the emphasis of less than and greater than, not just this is for me, this is for you, right?
Dude.
And that can be a temptation. So again, that's what we mean by spiritual formation. But it's honestly gotten a little bit more complex recently, which is it's even less up to Apple in terms of how we are formed, but it is more up to algorithmic platforms as to how we are. Because Apple's not deciding whether or not we see their content necessarily. The algorithms of these platforms decide who gets to see what, right?
Yes,
based on relevance. So I don't know who, again, I really need to like create a list of this is the person who said this so that I could appropriately attribute these like little tidbits. But at one point I heard this term, the algorithm is my shepherd. And it became such a dagger in like my soul when I reflected on, how many of us, even as believers, are formed algorithmically in terms of our content. Like, is the Lord our shepherd or is the algorithm our shepherd? Because who's guiding us? What's guiding our decisions? What's guiding what we see and what we don't see? What we put in front of us, or is it us anymore? Are we choosing? My wife and I have been wrestling with what we're gonna do. Like, we're not New Year's resolution people, and that's just because we've tried it so many times. And like, a couple of years ago, we decided like, well, let's do themes, and we came up with cool themes. And like, it feels like life circumstance just like put a knife in every single theme we've ever done. Yeah. So we've just kind of abandoned that. But we've been talking lately, it just happens to be now, about is it time to just cancel a bunch of streaming services, a bunch of platforms, and have our rubric be, is this algorithmically driven? Or is this not? Right? And can we set better safeguards for spending less time on platforms and media that is driven algorithmically and more that is driven, like, I'm a big Substack guy, but I don't let it make suggestions, or I ignore them. Right. Because I don't want an algorithm making suggestions. I want relationships making suggestions. Like you, Johnny, if you were to say, you have to check this guy out, that's going to mean something a lot different. Artificial intelligence becomes this weird place where it's so good, it's so convincing, that you might wonder at what point is the algorithm and is artificial intelligence going to start masquerading as the Holy Spirit? Yeah. Which would be really dangerous. And in my line of work, it's something I'm really careful about, because I have writers, I have designers who are leveraging artificial intelligence, right? Like I've seen church tools, that are being spun up And Jason and I have talked about some of these church tools, and we're like, man, like that is dangerous.
Shout out to Jason Campbell, mutual friend.
Jason Campbell, he's a man. Like he is like my AI like soulmate in terms of just if I have questions and if I'm unsure about like the moral line, I send it to Jason Campbell, and he sends me stuff all the time, and it's my favorite because there's a slippery slope about like as a pastor or as a creative efficiency versus like spirit-led inefficiency. Honestly, I don't even know if that's a thing, but I feel like it should. Like it's this idea of like I can't keep letting technology, and at the same time I'm reliant on it.
Well, is like, Jesus primarily efficient? Right, that's the question. Is Jesus primarily is that at the top of Jesus's pyramid?
Yeah,
efficiency.
Exactly. Yeah,
right. Which obviously not. Obviously, it's not a different North Star.
Yeah. If somebody can find, I'm sure, you know what? I bet you somebody asked AI to create an argument that it was. Yeah. And therein lies the problem.
Yeah. It's so let me go back because we're talking about, I mean, I think some of the themes of this conversation so far are kind of the real versus the fake, right? The things that are forming us, which makes total sense, right? You and I are both fans of John Mark Comer, and he's done some incredible work. The ruthless elimination of hurry. That book had a huge impact on me. And we're talking also about marketing, and we're also talking about technology. And I see you as sitting kind of in the center of all these different conversations, right? And you're a philosopher, and I'm going to call you a philosopher. You might not call yourself that, but you're a thinker. You're a philosopher. You're thinking deeply. You're wrestling. You're seeking your own application. And you said something earlier off camera about, and I want to go back maybe to the beginning a little bit of some of the tension that it explains. I think discussing this will explain some of the tension that we're all feeling, but don't know how to name. Yeah. Right. And you were talking about how in the beginning, this idea of Christian content being a manufactured idea, right? That came at some point along the timeline. We start talking about this thing called Christian content. And what is Christian content? It's the thing that Christians consume and that Christians are concerned with and whatever. Yeah. But it starts to feel like marketing in a sense, like easy segmentation maybe. Maybe we're living in a world where we want to be able to segment easily. Like, this is your tribe, this is my tribe. How can I identify your tribe? But that maybe that's not serving us well. So maybe speak about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for this to not go political, but I'm gonna dip a toe in a way that hopefully is not gonna ruffle too many feathers.
Sure.
But if you look at Christianity within the North American context, and you just compare it to, other sides of the diamond, if you want to say, around the world, right? Other expressions of Christianity. What you'll notice is that Christianity in North America has a pursuit of comfort and safety. And ultimately, there's a lot of fear baked into the way that we live our world, right? We're sheltered from a lot of real pain, I think it's who wrote that book on culture? Francis Chan wrote on making culture. He calls it the theme parkification of culture. What I mean by that is, or what he means by that, he contrasts a theme park to the wilderness, like when the Israelites had to wander through the wilderness. And the wilderness represents danger and unknown, reliance on God, safe, like when you don't have answers, right? If you think about it, like 100 years ago, we didn't know what bacteria was, right? We didn't know washing our hands did anything, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now we know so much that it is so easy to control so much to make our lives safer, to get out of the wilderness, right? Yes. But he contrasts it with the theme parkification. Like, I go to Disneyland and they're trying to hide like heaters. Like, what makes Disneyland so immersive is you go to Universal and you can look at the top of the building and you can see the AC units and you can see like They hide all of that to completely, they put trees everywhere. They create a universe and it's controlled and it's safe and nothing bad can happen and everything is known, right? And we want to do that, right? So the Christianization of something is saying, this is known, this is safe, this will not challenge your worldview, right? But there's danger in that, which is that's not what life is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about safety.
Okay.
I'll give you a really great example, like one of the most heartbreaking examples of this, which is story. One of my clients, I can't remember who, might have been Open Doors USA at the time, who was working. You know, they are really famous for smuggling Bibles into North Korea, and I think there was a story of a guy who was brought out of North America or North Korea, right, where he obviously, like in North Korea, like he can't even talk about his faith to his spouse, right? He can't. They worship in secret, do church in secret, like they would do. It must be China, not North Korea, because I know you wouldn't be able to do this, but like they would masquerade baptisms as swimming lessons, right? Or have birthday parties, or it looks like a birthday party, but it's house church, right? Kind of like mechanisms to be able to corporately worship. So he comes to North America, he emigrates here, and he's like, this is incredible. You guys can worship whenever you want. This is amazing. And he's like at church every day because he just can't believe this. And then 6 months later, he's started his own business and he's like thriving, but he's like stopped going to church every day. And then like a year later, and he's not even going to church anymore because he realizes I can have a more comfortable life if I'm open my business 7 days a week and I run it and I don't close it. And then he kind of reflects at the end. He's like, what happened? Like my comfort distracted me from God. And like, sure, am I safer? Am I healthier? Am I in fear? No, but my faith is gone. And what's interesting about that is like Christian content sounds great. It sounds like, oh, great, I can talk about God, I can worship God, I can do all these things. But what it actually does is it pulls us from the danger of the world, to be constantly confronted by challenges and relationships and the world. Like when the Inklings, like we were talking about before, like when there wasn't Christian content, there was just good content. They were like, Tolkien was writing The Lord of the Rings in the middle of a world war.
Yeah.
Like, and he was thinking about themes and pains and like injustices out there, right? And he didn't have like an alternative to escape to so that he could avoid the pain, right? And that, you know, he could just pretend that the kingdom is here and like that Jesus has come back, and if I just stay over here, it'll feel like heaven or feel like a new earth, I should say.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're supposed to do, or the reality. And maybe that's too bold to say. Who knows?
Well, I mean, you seem to struggle with boldness, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be a problem. So this happens, right? Like there's a point in time, and we're contrasting those 2 points. We're contrasting like, okay, what was it like to be in the world at the time of C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and the way that they're creating? And then, you know, fast forward, and now we're kind of creating boxes for ourselves to create within, right? Because you got to segment your audience. Yeah. Right? There's riches in the niches, so to speak, right? Yeah. So you got to define. So I need to, okay, so who do I write for? Well, I write for Christians. So I'm going to write this kind of content because if I want Christians to buy my book, I got to write this way because Christians have a certain expectation and I've got to meet those expectations. And if I step too far outside of those expectations, I could get in trouble and then I could lose my audience and I could lose my revenue. There seems to be a problem there, right? There seems to be a problem. And I think that's where you're getting at is that, and I like how you even tried to bring that into the way that you describe the mission of Masterworks, right? Like you're at Masterworks. Yes, Christ is infusing what there are values that are biblical and that are infused into the culture, infused into the people. But there's maybe a different way to do it, right? As opposed to, I'm going to signal here. I'm going to signal to everyone.
Yeah.
Come here, it's safe. Everybody thinks like you, right? Come here and purchase this product. It's safe. Everybody, it's the same thing your peers are using.
Yeah.
Versus, like, I think it's a different thing when a person who is transformed by Christ begins to live transformation, and begins to let the transformation speak for itself. Am I getting towards? Yeah.
You know what? Go ahead. I might even take it a step forward or a step further, which is, I'll compare this to the, again, I'll just make kind of like a modern day marketing comparison, right? So you said riches and niches, right? That's totally accurate. And maybe the problem was not that we niched to Christians, but we didn't niche far enough into what Jesus wants for Christians. So, I talk about this idea of the targeting paradox a lot of the time, right? Targeting paradox is the more targeted you are, the more it shapes your messaging in a way that makes you more interesting.
For sure.
Interesting
for sure
has larger application than being boring, right? It's literally like
resonance.
Jesus going, don't be lukewarm, be hot or cold, right? And he didn't say be hot. He didn't say just be cold. He was like, pick one. Like, be something that makes you interesting. So my favorite, like, in the world use case is Marlboro cigarettes, which is hilarious. It just in the nature of the conversation, like, no, I am not condoning smoking. I mean, whatever. Sometimes I like to smoke. But what I would say is when the Marlboro Man was created back in the day, right? They created this very specific persona. And like the Marlboro Man pretty much is the reflection of that persona, right? We want to attract these rugged men, and we want them to smoke our cigarettes, and we're going to think about that. And so we're going to create like this true guy's guy, cowboy on the ranch, smoking a Marlboro, like he's got life and gray hair and experience and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it goes like gangbuster. Like back in the day, they didn't have good like technology, right? Like the misnomer marketing or advertising back then is like 50% of your spend is going to work. 50% is not. You're just not going to know which 50% does what, right? Like, but like sales go up. So they retroactively hire these research consultants to like go into stores and try to figure out like who's buying these things. How is this happening? They get the report back, and their most popular audience is middle-aged women, like 40 to 60. And they're like, oh man, we totally miscalculated. We got our audience wrong. Quick, pivot to like catering to them, right? So they changed their persona. They wrote it for this person. And then Marlboro Man went away, and it just tanked.
They tanked.
But they didn't realize what it was. Women were buying the cigarettes because of the fantasy of the Marlboro Man, right? Like they want the Marlboro Man to come sweep them off their feet. Yeah. And they're like, if I smoke this cigarette, maybe he'll walk through the door and say, get on my horse and we can ride off into the sunset, right? It's your classic Harlequin romance kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what's really the story there is you create something that's interesting.
Yes.
If they had written the Marlboro Man for a middle-aged woman, they might not have made it there.
Yeah.
So there was nothing wrong with targeting and having and their persona, I believe, is still that dude because they went back, obviously.
Yeah.
They know that it's women who bought the cigarettes, but they didn't change from their persona. That's what I mean by the paradox of it all, right?
Yes.
Because they got
Yes.
their dudes to get to, just wasn't their best audience. So what I mean by maybe we've miscalculated, or we haven't had enough empathy towards targeting this, is if you think about it, like if you look at Jesus's life, what he's trying to do, what Jesus is ultimately trying to do is to get Christians out of their comfort zone, not in their comfort zone, right? And so is our marketing supposed to appeal to Christians, make them feel safe? Or is our marketing, if we're targeting Christians, supposed to challenge them and show them like not the safety of the bubble, right? So the Christian content kind of is maybe miscalculated in that sense.
Yeah.
So going back to like the Inklings, right? Like they're talking about how, like they're just writing good stories that are challenging right and wrong, good and evil. They're not thinking about it like have this safe thing you can read, right? They're thinking about no, the challenge of the Christian is to tell this story, and I want to give you something that you could tell your non-Christians about, and that you could have a conversation in the world about, right? Like you can see this happening with the church, right? The church, I think, I don't know who coined like the youth groupification of the church, where, in the 80s and 90s, all these youth pastors were like, hey, how can I be cool? How can I be hip? How do I like cater to the kids out in the world, right? And then those youth groups became senior pastors who started leading churches like youth groups. And what it's done is it's created tribalism, right? You come to my church for this experience. And if that experience is not for you, then go somewhere else. But that was not how the early church operated. The early church operated and be like, I don't care if you like our style of worship. I don't care. It's not about you. It's about Jesus. Like, you're not the center of the world. You're coming here to worship and to be challenged and to be grown. Like, I go to a church that has an organ, is very multi-generational, sings a lot of hymns. Hymns ain't my thing. And at first, it was really hard to even get into it. And now I'm like, I was like, I love our 85-year-old organ player. And like, it's challenged me, and it's challenged my perception. But it reminds me, it's like, church is not for me.
Yes.
And for my preferences.
Yes.
I am for the church. I am part of the body of Christ. I am coming to worship, to be challenged, and to challenge my peers, right? I wrote this, I'll send this to you later. I wrote this kind of devotional for a workshop that I was doing with International Justice Mission a couple weeks back around this idea of the sacred bummer, right? Like, and the sacred bummer essentially says, hey, as marketers, we want to make content that people will like, right? Like the attention economy, which it's like, I don't want to tell a bummer of a story. I want to tell good news, and I want to make something funny because funny goes viral, and like entertaining and all this stuff. Yeah. But the sacred bummer says, no. Like, as a nonprofit, as a Christian organization, you also have a duty to expose injustice, to kind of be a bummer sometimes, or a lot of the time, because they're not going to get that anywhere else. And without pain, you forget about hope, right? Without suffering, you don't appreciate joy, right? You take it for granted. And also you stop caring. And that's hard. It's hard to be the guy who's always a bummer all the time, right? Yeah. It's hard to not make Christian content because we know that it will make someone happy and feel safe and not challenge their assumptions or remind them about how radical Jesus really was, right? How enemy loving Jesus really was, right? All of these things. And maybe that's just a miscalibration of what it means to really niche, right? To niche is to have empathy for the user and say, it's not just what you want. Jesus has to say also what you need. And maybe that's even more important than what you want.
All right, dude. All right. So we're coming to the end of our time, but there's something I feel like something kind of sunk into me while you were talking, um, which is part of why this conversation about Christianity and marketing and you work with faith organizations that are doing good things in the world, but then it's the complexity of how do they get the message out and
Right. Yeah.
what ways do they employ, and it comes down to like the idea of being versus appearing, right? Like a lot of the stories you're talking about have to do with like being. What is my essence, right? Am I and there's a different thought process or a different rigor that goes into being as the focus versus appearing, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems like, and the marketing as an industry, it seems like, well, you got to make it appear. You got to make whatever your thing is, you got to make it appear this and appear that and appear this, or people won't buy it. So it's all appearance. And so then if, even in the marketing world, if we take our cues from that playbook, then it's like, okay, this nonprofit that you're working with, how do we make it look this way? How do we make it look that way? How do we make it look attractive? How do we make it look palatable? And in that sense, marketing by that definition is antithesis, right? It becomes antithesis because we must be consumed with the real, right? Like we must be consumed with the truth. We must be consumed with actually living in integrity and living out, the truth that we claim to believe. And then in some sense, trust God to bring the magnetism.
Yeah.
Right. And so am I getting down anywhere near to the approach that you're trying to take, that you try to take with?
Sometimes it's things are just not going to make sense and the numbers aren't going to math out. And that's really hard. It's really hard to live in that tension. Like I'm just going to say this hot take. I'm not a big fan of Chick-fil-A's chicken. It's just okay to me. I like fried chicken a lot.
You can't say that.
I know. I can't. But
I'm cutting this. Let's get it cut. No,
I am a massive fan of Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It makes zero business sense that they are closed on Sunday. Zero.
Yeah.
I have literally seen Popeyes stores pop up and their only advertisement is open Sundays because they know they can just take advantage of that. It makes zero business sense, right?
Yes.
But it makes a lot of kingdom sense when they think about who their staff is, what the value of rest is, what the value of trusting in God to create space for rest, right?
Yes.
And they don't say on their website, like, we aren't here on Sunday because we're Christians.
No.
Right?
No.
They say we're closed on Sunday because at our founding, we discover, or like we were founded knowing the value of rest. And we wanted to make sure that all of our staff would have the opportunity to rest and worship if they so desire on a day, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference between being and appearing.
Yes.
Right? And the hard part about it is being sometimes makes sense in the world, in the marketing world, and sometimes it ain't gonna math out.
Come on, preach it, bro. There it is right there.
And that's the tension with all
there
of it,
it is.
Right?
There it is, dude.
Do I make this decision because I know that there's money or prestige or growth or audiences or what have you? Or do I make this decision because I trust God, because I know I'm pursuing his heart, and I don't know how that's going to net out? It might still work. It might not. I had an organization that like never sent emails on Saturday or Sunday because they had some of their audiences who were Messianic Jews who celebrated the Sabbath on a Friday through Saturday, right? Some Christians, so Sunday. So they lost 2 days where testing and data and stuff like that. And like, of course, even at MassWorks, we're like, hey, you should try testing Ascend on a Saturday and see how it goes and see if you get an increase. And there's like, no, we don't need to know that. We don't want to know that. Because in our state of being, we are going to trust that that's right. And and the scary part is we are going to then therefore even reject the data if it tells us otherwise. That's hard. That's a hard decision.
That's hard. Yes. But it's the right wrestle, right? I mean, that might even be the name of this episode, the right wrestle.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Because that's where the tension is, but that's also where the victory is. That's where the beauty is. That's where the miracles are. Right. Brother, we were just getting started, man.
I know. We need an episode 2, maybe.
We definitely got to have an episode 2, bro. And I don't care if it takes a year. Definitely gonna get going. But Jeff, I really want to tell you, man. I appreciate. What do I appreciate about you, man? I appreciate the depth. I can tell that you take these things internally and you think and you wrestle and you pray, and you're trying to understand how to live the life of Jesus in a very complicated world and a very complicated industry. And I respect you and I respect the work that you're doing. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Really love this.
And everybody who stayed with us up to this point, I'm going to keep bringing you people to talk about deep, deep things in the kingdom as we wrestle with faith and work and what it means to live the life of Christ in a complex world, complex age that we live in. So we'll see you next time. Take it easy.